Welcome to the Explainer. Today, we're popping the hood on your own brain to look at the hidden biological machinery that dictates exactly why you do what you do, why you procrastinate, why you binge watch, why you endlessly scroll. We're going to break down the architecture of pursuit and see how a single, incredibly powerful molecule is secretly pulling the strings on your habits, your focus, and really your entire daily life.
Think about the last time you bought something you desperately wanted. Maybe it was a new phone, some sneakers, or just a massive meal you were craving all afternoon. You literally obsessed over it. You finally got it, and then nothing, right? Like a few days, maybe even a few minutes later, you just felt completely indifferent about the whole thing. So why does that happen? Well, the answer lies in how our brain fundamentally processes motivation and desire. Let's kick things off with Section 1, the Great Dopamine Myth. There is a massive misconception out there. Pop culture tells us one thing, and hard neuroscience tells us something completely different. You hear people talk all the time about getting a dopamine hit from eating chocolate or getting a like on Instagram, right? We've all been taught that dopamine equals pleasure. But neuroscientists have actually found that dopamine is the pursuit molecule. It's all about wanting, desiring, and craving. It's the chemical that drives you toward a reward, not the actual pleasure you feel once you finally get your hands on it. Stanford's Dr. Anna Lemke really hits the nail on the head here. She says dopamine is about wanting, not about having. It makes you restless, it makes you motivated. Meanwhile, other chemicals in your brain, things like serotonin or oxytocin, those are the ones responsible for making you feel content and happy with what you already have in the present moment. Basically, dopamine is the itch, it is definitely not the scratch. Which brings us to Section 2, the biology of pursuit. To really grasp why we're wired to always want more, we have to rewind the clock. Dopamine evolved as a universal currency for survival. 100,000 years ago, ancient humans needed a serious biological drive to walk miles and miles just to find food. 10,000 years ago, that same drive pushed us to find fresh water and build shelters. Dopamine was literally a matter of life and death. Fast forward to today, your brain hasn't changed, but your environment completely has. Now, that exact same ancient survival circuitry is being hijacked to make us forage for endless digital entertainment, notifications, and likes. And this leads us to a fascinating mechanism called reward prediction error. See, your dopamine neurons are constantly guessing what's going to happen next. When you get exactly what you expected, your dopamine just stays level. But when a reward is unexpectedly huge or totally surprising, boom, your dopamine neurons spike massively. And that creates a powerful biological learning signal that basically screams at your brain, whatever you just did, do it again. It's exactly how we learn to repeat behaviors that feel highly rewarding. Let's look at the flip side in Section 3, the pleasure-pain balance. There is a dark side to these massive dopamine spikes. Think of your baseline level of dopamine. When you do something wildly stimulating, you get a huge peak. But here is the crucial part. What goes up must come down. Your brain immediately compensates for that huge spike by dropping your dopamine levels below your baseline into a temporary deficit. It's an internal pleasure-pain balance. Every time you experience a massive, unnatural high, you inevitably have to pay for it with an emotional and motivational low. And different activities drastically impact that baseline. If you're constantly indulging in highly stimulating behaviors, whether that's drugs, endless gaming, or just binge-watching intense shows for hours on end, you are continually depleting your baseline dopamine. Your brain literally runs out of its readily releasable pool of this molecule. The result? You're left feeling unmotivated, completely exhausted, and burned out when it comes to just doing normal, everyday tasks. To put into perspective just how extreme this can get, addictive drugs can actually trigger a dopamine surge 10 times greater than any natural reward we'd encounter in the wild. 10 times. This powerfully and dangerously rewires the brain, teaching your survival centers to prioritize the drug over absolutely all other healthy, long-term goals. So how does this play out today? That's Section 4, hijacked by modern tech. When this ancient survival system crashes headfirst into modern smartphones, the results are pretty intense. Dr. Andrew Huberman explains that tech companies have weaponized something called intermittent reinforcement. This is the exact same psychological mechanism that makes slot machines so wildly addictive. You don't win every time you pull the lever, and that unpredictability, that's exactly what keeps your dopamine spiking and keeps you totally hooked. So literally, every swipe on your phone is a tiny gamble. When you're scrolling social media, you have absolutely no idea if the next post is going to be boring, kind of funny, or absolutely amazing. And that uncertainty alone triggers a massive dopamine release. You aren't even actually enjoying every video. Your brain is just locked in this endless loop, anticipating the mere possibility of a reward. Over time, this constant overstimulation leads to some very real, very noticeable symptoms. The big one is a progressive narrowing of the things that actually bring you pleasure. Ordinary life just begins to feel agonizingly boring. You might lose interest in school, your relationships start to suffer, your focus shatters, and your drive to pursue those long-term, delayed rewards, it virtually disappears. But it's not all doom and gloom. Let's talk solutions in Section 5, the comeback strategy.
The good news is your brain's dopamine system is highly adaptable. Neuroscience actually gives us a really practical comeback strategy to rebuild our baseline. Step 1, stop layering multiple dopamine triggers at once. Like if you go to the gym, slam a highly caffeinated pre-workout, blast loud music, and scroll your phone between sets, you are artificially spiking your dopamine so high that you will inevitably crash later. And eventually, you're going to hate the gym without all those extra stimuli. Step 2 is practicing intermittent tech fasting, just letting your receptors breathe for a bit. And step 3 is consciously delaying gratification so your baseline dopamine can reset to a normal, healthy level.
Now this brings us to one of the most powerful mindset shifts you can possibly make. We've got to move away from extrinsic reinforcement, meaning working only for the end reward, and shift toward intrinsic reinforcement. If you only work hard for the paycheck, the grade, or the finish line, the hard work itself feels miserable, and it actually undermines your dopamine system. You have to learn to find the reward in the friction of the process itself. So how do you actually pull that off? First, don't heavily spike your dopamine right before you do hard work, and don't reward yourself excessively right after. Instead, focus entirely on the challenge right in front of you. Consciously tell yourself that the strain, the effort, the friction, that is the reward. By mentally linking the feeling of hard work with progress, you can literally train your brain to release dopamine during the effort. You basically turn hard work into an infinite source of energy. Understanding this biology is absolutely vital, because if we don't actively manage our behaviors and our environment, we risk slipping into neurotransmitter dysregulation. And look, this isn't just about feeling a little lazy on a Sunday. Impaired dopamine functioning is biologically linked to severe conditions, ranging from depression and anxiety to binge eating and full-blown addiction. Ultimately, dopamine isn't evil. It is this incredible, beautiful molecule, simply doing exactly what evolution designed it to do: keep you alive and keep you moving forward. But in our modern world, we all face a really critical choice. Are you going to actively manage this system, or are you going to let tech algorithms and modern conveniences pull your biological strings? By understanding the architecture of your own desires, you can finally step off that endless treadmill of cheap, quick stimulation. You can reset your baseline. You can refocus your profound biological drive toward the long-term goals and the real-world relationships that actually matter. So I'll leave you with this. Now that you know the rules of the game, what are you going to pursue next?